welcome to this week's video. For this week, I am doing my wrap-up for the month of November. I have a bunch of books to talk about here, and sadly, most of them were DNFs. Yeah, so let's jump sort of like right into it. My first DNF is sadly a Rosemary Rogers All I Desire, and specifically I wanted to talk about the fact of like why I DNF'd it. Some they just didn't like grab me or what have you. Some might have very specific reasons for DNFing. This one I have a very specific reason for DNFing. It is a historical romance, and between a Angela Lindsay and the hero's name is Jake Braden. And the reason I DNF'd it was because of Jake. And so there's a scene where he talks about he has just come back from like finding something that he just come back. I don't remember what he was doing, but he comes back with a scalp. Yeah. And in I think it was a Spanish man's scalp, and this is why I DNF'd it. Comes back with the scalp. It's not really mine, though I've taken a few scalps in my time, and that's why I DNF'd it. Because he is, I think he's like an, is he an Indian scout or is he just a captain? But anyway, I understand sort of like in the Indian sort of culture that the taking of scalps, like it's a cultural thing. It's what they do. It's not, not that I'm saying that I'm okay with it, but it's not, that's how they a lot of the time deal with, or in history have dealt with, killing someone. They take their scalp. Jake Braden is not, from what I read and remember, he is not an Indian. He's not a Native American. Or he might be a half-breed, I don't know. I don't think so. But the fact that he has done this, that he's not saying that the one he has is the one that he did, but he claims that he's done this in the past. No, this is not a hero I want to read about, who would do this savage butchery. No. I didn't want Angela to fall in love with this guy. So I DNF'd it. Just, no. Next one, I also had a reason for DNFing. And that made me sad because I was so looking forward to this book. And it's From Reverence to Rape, The Treatment of Women in Movies by Molly Haskell. And I was so enjoying it. So, I had such high hopes for this book because it sounds like so interesting. And then she says this, that she's talking about the American male and how they, their treatment of women sort of like in history, and how they either they only had like a few good years where they are mature and confident enough to appreciate a woman sort of as she is, that men either want men either like they're when they're teenagers, they, only like see women as like sex objects. And then when they're like older, they're only interested in like young women to sort of like make themselves feel younger and like to feed their ego and blah blah blah. And that there's only a few years, there's a little window in between where they actually see women as equal and appreciate them as they are and respect them, sort of like desire them as they are. And then she says this: there are a few good years in which he can both appreciate and operate, but not enough, particularly with the current defections from heterosexuality, to satisfy the female population, which may be why more women are turning to each other or to themselves. The current defections from heterosexuality. Like, women are choosing to abandon heterosexuality. Like, they're defecting, like they're escaping from communist Russia, and equating that with homosexuality. Which may be why more and more women are turning to each other or to themselves. So, it's not that lesbians and homosexuals, LGBTQ plus people, it's not that that's the way they are and that's the way they were born. It's the fact that men are such ass butts that turn women into lesbians. That men are so horrible that they make women turn to each other. That it's because of men that there are lesbians. And I was out. Because that homophobic bullshit made me not interested in anything else that this homophobic bitch had to say. So I was out. No, thank you. I'm sure that I would have enjoyed this book. But that comment just turned me off her so much. And again, I am a heterosexual woman. I can't even imagine how offensive this would have been to a lesbian or to a homosexual person in general. Me as a straight woman was offended by this. So no. Okay, next we have Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Again, high hopes for this one, but it was basically, she was just belaboring the same point over and over. Like, I wanted this to be more of a discussion of the different ways in which women were treated badly and the different ways in which they were deserving of respect and different points that women, different ways that could change, and different suggestions for what women deserved and how to change men's and society's viewpoints about women. That's not what this was. This was her belaboring the same point over and over and over, and I'm trying to even remember what that point was, and it's just sort of, yeah, that women were being treated as inferior to men and that they shouldn't be. That women were, looked down on as like the weaker sex or what have you, and that they shouldn't be. It was just that, over and over. And she really seemed to have some problem with this dude. What was his name? I think his name was Rousseau. Yeah, Rousseau. She really had a problem with some guy named Rousseau. But yeah, it was just not what I wanted, not what I expected. It was disappointing. It was just her basically making the same point over and over again again, I DNF'd it, but after 180 pages of her making the same point over and over, I was just like, no. Yeah, sadly that did not work for me. Next we had Afterglow by Jordana Daniels, and it was this woman, what was her name? Hillary, and she falls in love with this guy named Travis. But Hillary is this very sort of strong career woman, and then like I think I only made it like halfway because I didn't like Hillary. She was like supposed to be like portrayed as this strong career woman, but that was sort of all she was. She had no personality outside of being a career woman, and that was all her focus was on. And it's just, I've read books where the woman is like career focused and it's wonderful, and the book was wonderful and the character was like wonderful, because while she was career focused, she had a personality outside of her career. She had interests and friends and just things about her outside of her career that made her a well-rounded person. Hillary doesn't. She's just completely, in my opinion, devoid of any personality outside of career woman. And I could totally see how this was gonna go. She was gonna fall in love with Travis, but fight it because career. And she saw that like any giving in to emotion and lust and passion was, taking away from career. And she couldn't possibly, because without career, she has no life. So she was going to fight her feelings for Travis and see him as a threat to her career. And have, like, the conflict would be that Travis was most likely in love with the woman, which from what I read, I don't understand why, because she has no personality outside of career. So I don't know why Travis would fall in love with her, but apparently he does. And yeah, I could just see that was going to be the conflict. And I was just like, no, she had like no personality. And that's that, because I remember really enjoying the Paradise Press imprint of books very, very much. I remember I used to get them at the like old bookstores. One old bookstore that I mentioned I had been on a walk on, and where a long time ago they used to have books for like $5 for $1, like 25 cents, and now the selection there at that bookstore downtown, an old used bookstore, the prices are like $1-2, and like that's that's in keeping with like over time, and like prices of things change and stuff, but they don't have like the same collection that they did when I was younger. When younger, it was like more of a mix of things. There was like romance, there was horror, there was mystery, and now if you go to that ABC Books in downtown Toronto, it's primarily literary fiction. Yeah, that's just for me. Next we have Jill Gregory's Rough Wrangler Tender Kisses. And this is between Wade and Caitlin, and Wade is one of a few boys who are raised by this rancher, and the rancher is sort of like a foster father to them. And the father dies, and then his estranged daughter, he leaves the will to her, he leaves the ranch to her, or like part of the ranch, and then Wade is the owner of the other half. And the daughter like has only like bad things to say about the father because she believes that the father sort of like abandoned them, um, even though it was the mother that left because she didn't want to live the ranch life, and sort of pretty much kind of poisoned the daughter against the father, and kept letters away from um, her. And so right off the bat, Caitlin and Wade have this friction because he believes that she's like a city girl who has no place on the ranch, and like who hurt his foster father's feelings by like not wanting anything to do with him, blah blah blah. And um, instead of her saying, "This is why I hate my father," no, she just kept saying these like snappy, cold things, and Wade would get pissed off and be like, "I don't want to hear you ever say anything bad about this man. This man was like a father to me, blah blah." And instead of saying, "Well, you know what he was like to me?" Nothing, because he abandoned me, to her belief. He abandoned me and like wanted nothing to do with me and blah blah blah. But no, does she say that to him? No. Anytime he gets pissed off, is like, "I don't want to hear you say anything bad about it." She's like, okay. And then she would say another thing angry about him, and then Wade would get mad, and then she'd like not say anything. And it just became sort of ridiculous, where the only conflict that these two had was that she hated the man who raised him. And instead of opening her mouth and being like, "This is why," she just kept that to herself. So that he kept on thinking that she was nothing but a city spoiled little brat who was the reason for his foster father's heartbreak. And it just, no. Nope. It's sad. It's sad this reading month. Next we have Lily's Journey, which is by Tanya Cross, which I just didn't grab me. And it's Lily, her mother dies, and then she goes to live with her estranged father. And I just found it sort of too slow. Like nothing really happened for like more over like half the book, more like almost half the book. It's just her meeting different people in the town, in the village, and her father being sort of a cold ass butt to her. Yeah, no. Next we had The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. Tried this one, could not get past the first one or two chapters, because it's like one or two chapters before the lady, Isabel Archer, even like shows up. And the first chapter or two is basically this guy sitting in a garden and they're talking about his shawl. No. Just no. I wasn't gonna like put myself through dragging through that, waiting for something interesting to happen. No. Nope. Did not work for me. Kathy Maxwell's A Match Made in Bed. This one made me sad because look at that insert cover. And I will say, this is actually a scene in the book. I love that. I love when that happens, when like the cover actually like references a scene in the book where she hits him with a pillow. And it's a Cassandra and Soren and their marriage of convenience, and she he needs to marry her for her money, even though they are like childhood friends and they are attracted to each other. Um, he sort of has to marry her, has to convince her to marry him because he needs the monies. And she thinks that she has the monies, but turns out she doesn't have the monies because her father kind of spent it all a little bit, and so she is broke. And so he's like, Soren is now in a panic because he's going to lose his estate and all that stuff. But she does have a uh, necklace that is one of the only things that she has from her mother, but she uses it to, she sells it to save their home, the Soren's home, which is now her home now. And I DNF'd it when, I don't remember what happened, but she throws it in his face that she's the one who saved him with her mother's pearls. That she sort of like throws it in his face as a way to like, I don't know, it just really rubbed me the wrong way, the way that she did that. And I couldn't look at her the same way. And he sort of doesn't react to it. And that, it was kind of like, oh, see, it didn't bother him, so it's fine that you said that. Let's just move her along with the romance story. Nope. I, read a little further, skimmed a bit to see, like, okay, when is she going to apologize for throwing this thing in his face? And as far as I read, she didn't. I didn't see any apology. Granted, I skimmed the rest of it because I did not want to read about this woman who would say something so malicious. Like, it just really, really bothered me that she would throw that in his face. And just, nope, 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 nope. Oh, Moll Flanders. Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe. This this was, I love the writing in this one more than the next one we're going to talk about. But I DNF'd it halfway because Moll Flanders, she's an orphan. Her mother dies, or she thinks her mother dies, in prison. Or the mother, like, she thinks that, like, the mother, she was in prison, but she was saved from being executed because she was pregnant. And I think, as far as Moll knows, her mother dies. She learns later that her mother didn't die because Moll accidentally ends up marrying her own brother when she discovers that the woman who is her husband's mother is actually her mother as well. So that's a whole thing. But the thing that made me DNF it was Moll is looking for her rich husband. She wants to marry money. And, I can sort of understand it because she was an orphan. But then, like, she gets, she wasn't, like, living on the streets or anything. She gets taken in by this woman and raised, and, like, then she's, like, in the service. She is, like, a maid in a house, and, like, so she wasn't, like, destitute or anything. She just didn't have a lot of money. So she's very focused on marrying money. And she kind of goes from, like, husband to husband. And the thing that was, like, bothering me about her, because if it wasn't for this one thing, I would have really liked Moll. I liked Moll, apart from this one thing, is she kept having children and then, like, abandoning them as she went to find another husband. She would get married, have, like, 1 or 2 kids, then leave them with somebody, either, like, that husband or that husband's family, and then leave the country, go find another husband, have another kid with them. Oh, that didn't work out. Leave them, leave her children, go to another country, find another, like, she went from, like, husband to husband, having kids with them, and then just abandoning her children. And I just, like, considering how she was born, and how, her own mother died, and she was, for the most part, an orphan as, like, a little child. The fact that she would have nothing to do with the children that she was having really bothered me. And then I finally DNF'd when she discovers that she's pregnant again. And she says something along the lines of, while I could not myself bear getting rid of the child, I would not mind if I miscarried. And that's when I DNF'd the book. Because, again, yes, she's, going through, like, hard times. She is having trouble finding a husband with some money. I understand that. However, she is a grown-ass woman by this point. She is going from husband to husband, having children. Stop having children! There are... If if you're going, like, from man to man, if you're trying to find a husband, close your legs! Stop it! Like, stop sleeping with these men if you have no interest in raising your children that you have with these men. And then to, like, even wish a miscarriage on yourself, but then pretend like you're a good woman, like, oh, I could never get rid of it myself, but if it were to die on its own, like, that's no better. I couldn't, like, I DNF'd it, which made me sad, because I was so enjoying the writing style. This book, I said, could not be published today, because it is pure telling. She is telling you a story. There is no showing, there's no, like, third person point of view, like, omniscient point of view. She is, like, sitting down and telling you this story of, like, I was raised by this, and then this happened, and then I went to this place, and then I went to this place, and then this happened, and oh my goodness, he's my brother, and then, oh no, I'm having babies, oh no, I'm gonna go and, like, this guy has no money after all, so I'm gonna leave him. And it's just, she's telling you this story. This could not be written today, because there are so many freaking publishing gatekeepers who, like, think that they overrule the rules of, like, that they sort of, like, are the overlords of grammar and, English classes, and they would, like, there's no way that they would publish this book today. Because today, the new rule is that you have to show, not tell. Telling is bad. You have to show and, like, immerse your reader, like, bring your reader into the story and have them experience it and blah, blah, blah. That's not what happened here. But I was so enjoying it till I got to that one point. And at that point, I couldn't ignore the annoyance that I had with every time she would get married, have children. She would abandon her children to go find another rich husband. And no. Nope. But I did enjoy Ball Flanders, even though I DNF'd it. I enjoyed it miles more than this one. No. Just no. I I wanted to punch Elizabeth Bennet in the face for 95% of this book. And I know that this is a classic for so many people. They consider this the first romance novel. And it is the gold standard of romance novels for people who like to shit on the romance genre. And so they pretend that this is their favorite romance novel because they want to sound smart. That's all. Because the writing in this book was so convoluted and so, like, she used, like, if she's talking about somebody, like, sitting in a chair, she'll talk about how she'll use these, like, long-winded sentences of, like, they positioned their legs just so, and, like, turned their ankle this way, and turned their ankle this way so that their toe was pointing towards the east wing of the room where the sun hit the carpet this way, and then they brought their knee forward, and, like, just 7 different sentences to say that someone is sitting in a chair. And it just, like, the writing style was so over impressed with itself. Like, no. Like, Moll Flanders, again, if we're comparing the writing style of Moll Flanders is miles above the writing style of Jane Austen. I'm sure, like, Jane Austen was a lovely lady. But, oh my God. And Liz Bennet is supposedly this great literary heroine. I could not stand her. Because she sort of held herself above all the vapid society girls who had no interests at all, and all they were interested in was, like, clothes and fashion and finding a husband. And Liz Bennet was above it all, and she was so much better than everybody else. She was not like other girls. When she was the most vain, prideful, the only reason that she was angry at Darcy and didn't like Darcy was because Darcy said he wouldn't dance with her. So this great literary heroine, who was not like other girls, spent the entire book trashing this man because he said he wouldn't dance with her, when he really wasn't interested in dancing with anyone, because he was sort of like, he wasn't the lively, fake ass men who, like, danced around her and, like, wanted her, and who she pretended to be like, oh no, I don't want, like, a vain man who's just dancing around me and, like, paying it, she was, like, not interested in, like, the, like, society men, and, because she wasn't like other girls. And so she spends the entire book trashing this man, who most likely just didn't like going to parties. He was a shy, withdrawn man. He wasn't the life of the party. I mean, had she never met apparently not a shy man. That she somehow like found it a fault of his that he wasn't like dancing to the same tune as like all the other men. And the whole thing with like Wickham and how everybody was telling her that this man was trash. But oh no, Darcy is the one who's like trash. Darcy is the bad one. Wickham is like charming and like has manners and like all this shit. And I'm going to say something that is going to likely piss off a lot of people. There's no banter in this book. None. This book that is held up as the high gold standard of banter that all the people who like bitch about the romance genre and put it down and who trash it and say that like that today's romance novel doesn't know how to do banter and blah blah blah, that it's Jane Austen was like the queen of banter. No, Liz and Darcy argued in this book a lot, but I read no banter. Banter to me is like humorous, snappy, witty comebacks between like the hero and the heroine. This was just arguing. I saw no witty, snappy Now maybe I missed it in the 13 different words that she uses to make her point in one sentence. Maybe I missed it, but, and I'm going to say something that is going to piss a lot of people off, but if you read any of today's historical romances, if you read Julia Quinn, for sakes, her banter is miles above anything that you will find in here. Miles. Those of you who have clicked off, those of you who have stayed, let's continue. Julia Quinn, Lisa Kleypas, Victoria Alexander, Lorraine Heath, just any historical romance author today who writes, like, yeah, just miles. Their banter is miles above this. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, you know, they have their inspiration from, like, Pride and Prejudice. Yeah, inspiration of how not to do banter. I'm sorry. This book just did not work for me. The main love story of this book is Jane and Bingley. That is a hill I will die on. There was maybe some romance between Liz and Darcy in like the last 2 pages. But for the most part, no. No, this is not a romance between Liz and Darcy. The love story of this book is Jane and Bingley. And I will die on that hill. Oh, this book just so did not work for me. And it made me so sad. Because I was so looking forward to. You know, my favorite classic thus far is still Jane Eyre. The book that I read after, the classic that I read after that, Ruth by Elizabeth Gaskell, even though I hated that ending, is still miles above this. Miles. No. So that was my little Pride and Prejudice rant. And A Most Scandalous Proposal by Ashlyn McNamara. It did not grab me. That was just the only reason. Like, it was fine, and there was again excuse me, I also didn't like that we spent too much time in the love stories between Julia and Benedict, but half of it was the sister's point of view and the guy that she liked, the subplot. And I think there was too much of it taken away from Julia and Benedict's story, and I don't like that. It has to be either from an author that I know and like for the subplot to work, where like I trust the subplot, that I'm gonna like the subplot. But for the most part, I do not like subplots with other couples in my romance novels. So yeah, that one just did not work for me. So that is my wrap up for the month of November. So were they all DNFs? Looking at the pod, I think they were all DNFs. Oh, they weren't all DNFs. I did read. I had an Audible success, but to be fair, it wasn't a fiction Audible. It was a non-fiction Audible, and it was The Clanlands Almanac with Graham McTavish and Sam Heughan, and it was sort of a companion to Clanlands, which is a companion to their TV show, their travel TV show, Men in Kilts. I loved this Audible audiobook. It was so fun. Sam and Graham narrate it, and just the two of them together, and they're just going through like the months of the year with notable sort of like Scottish bits of history and like Scottish people and just like different historical tidbits and facts, and sprinkled throughout is like a lot of like behind the scenes stuff from Outlander and when they were filming Men in Kilts, and little stories sprinkled about that. It was just a good time. It was just a good time. Sam and Graham I would listen to them together narrating my shopping list, because they're so fun and funny together. So Audible, one win. One win in a long time from Audible, and it's a nonfiction. So right now I am reading, and I'm almost halfway through, Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery, which I am not much for middle grade, but I consider this a more of like classic literature. I am adoring this one. I'm adoring it so much. And I remember watching bits and pieces of the 80s series with Megan Follows, and Jonathan Crombie, may he rest in peace, as my Gilbert Blythe. I do not acknowledge the 2000, what was it, 18, 19? I do not acknowledge Anne with an E's, Gilbert Blythe. I cannot stand that actor. He is just so... Just after seeing a video clip of him sort of dragging fans of the show, of his show, and just talking down to them and just being so condescending and just outright offensive, he like completely turned me off ever wanting to watch Anne with an E. Anne of Green Gables, the 1980s version with Megan Follows, is the gold standard. Jonathan Crombie, may you rest in peace, will forever be my Gilbert Blythe. That ass butt in Anne with an E, not my Gilbert Blythe. Ever. Ever. But I am so enjoying Anne of Green Gables. The writing style, the storytelling, like, my God, Lucy Maud Montgomery. The way she writes is like being wrapped in a blanket, lying on a couch, or like sitting on a couch, drinking cocoa or like the best tea, and just being the coziest cozy to ever cozy. This book is pure dopamine stress relief. I take this book to work with me and read it during my breaks, and it just puts me in just like the best mood. If you do not know, Anne of Green Gables is the story of Anne, who is mistakenly brought to Avonlea because this brother and sister want to adopt a boy to help them out on their farm. Repeat, they wanted to adopt a boy to help them out on their farm. But unfortunately, there is a mix-up, and the orphanage sends a girl instead. And Anne is very sort of... Anne is hella extra. She is very extra. She is like this lively pixie, but not like in an obnoxious way, who just like is just delightful and is just, she never stops talking, and she sees like the good in everything, and she's the one thing that she has a hang up about is her red hair. And so she goes to school, but you know, like, that's like the one negative cloud in her life is her red hair. So she goes to school after the Cuthberts decide that they are going to keep her, because Matthew, the brother, the old man, he does not people. He does not people. He does not like people. He doesn't like being around them. But he takes a liking to Anne, and he convinces his sister to keep her. And he's like, you know, I'll let you raise her. I won't interfere and blah, 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 but please, can we keep her? So they keep her. So Anne goes to school, and there's a boy in this school named Gilbert Blythe, who is sort of like the charming, kind of like happy-go-lucky, everybody likes him. He's like the cutest boy in school. All the girls kind of fawn over him, and he, like, you know, charms them and like teases them. He teases them, and he decides, he instantly is interested in Anne. You know, she comes in, and she's like no girl that like he's ever met before, and he's so interested in her. So he decides to, you know, the way that to fall, you know, on his, you know, usual way of doing things by charming girls is to tease them. He decides that he's going to tease her about her red hair, which is the worst way that he could have gone about letting this girl know that he liked her. Because, as I said, this is Anne's one weakness, one weak spot about herself. And so she is so offended when he like grabs one of her braids and basically likens it to a carrot, that she breaks a the writing slate over his head and declares that he will forever be her enemy. So, what worked for Gilbert with all the other girls did not work with Anne. So this poor boy spends the rest of the school year trying to make it up to her and like trying to like be nice to her and like all this stuff, but she is having none of it. He is her mortal enemy for the rest of her existence, according to Anne. Even though like we know that like later on they do fall in love and get married and all that stuff. But just watching the beginning of it, I had no idea that Gilbert Blythe was such a simp for Anne Shirley from book one. From book one, this boy is a simp for her. He is like this wishful panda trying to get her to like him. So that's what I'm reading right now. I am almost over halfway through, almost finished it, and I have book 2 ready to go because even though I have like, that's my TBR, and I'm telling myself that I should be good and get like the next book from there, I have book 2 to go because if I'm as enjoying it as much as I am right now, I want to read the whole series. It's just wonderful. It's so wonderful and calming and just heartwarming and just cozy and just, oh, wonderful, just wonderful. So that's what I'm reading right now. I will say that I did a reread of The Bronze Horseman, because I've been annotating it, and I'm not going to say too much about that because I'm doing it for a giveaway, but for somewhere else. I don't think it's going to be a YouTube giveaway. It's going to be, there's a Bronze Horseman group that I'm in that I think that I will give them sort of first dibs, see if anybody there wants it. And it's Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simon. It's a World War II set story. Love story between Alexander and Tatiana. And it's, Alexander is an American posing as a Russian soldier, and it's angsty, and it's just, it's heartbreaking and just beautiful, and it's the first book in a trilogy-ish, because there's a companion cookbook with like different little bits and scenes and stories also from this series, and there's a later book of hers called Lone Star that has a Bronze Horseman connection that I'm not going to spoil here. But yeah, so I also like read this in November, but it was just a reread. So yep, that's going to be it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed that. And I'm sorry if I offended any. Well, I'm not sorry if I offended you. I'm sorry if I didn't agree with your thoughts on certain classic favorites that you might have. It was just my opinion on like those books, and if you're here, it's because you want my opinion. So that's gonna be it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. I'd love to know some of your thoughts on the books that I've mentioned, but if you're angry about some of my thoughts, I don't really care. You can save those words for people who also like love those books. If you're gonna like comment just to like be angry because I had thoughts about your favorite book, save your energy for like your own channel or your own sort of like feed where you can like rant about my thoughts all you want over there, and just over here just don't. But yeah, so follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/authorejamie. like my Facebook page at facebook.com/author EJME. I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!